was an ordinary Wednesday when I returned home from work. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street. As I stepped into my apartment building, I noticed something unusual, an unmarked package sitting on my doorstep. I paused for a moment, studying it. The box was small, wrapped in plain brown paper, with no return address or sender information. There was just a simple label with my name written in neat, blocky handwriting. Curiosity gnawed at me. I hadn't ordered anything, and I had no idea who could have sent it. I glanced around, half expecting someone to jump out and claim the package, but the hallway was empty, silent except for the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I picked up the package. The weight of it surprised me. It felt solid, almost heavy, and I could sense something inside shifting as I moved it. My heart raced a little. What could it be? I couldn't shake the feeling that it was meant for me, that it held some significance, and yet my instinct screamed to leave it be. Ignoring that impulse, I carried the package inside and set it down on the kitchen table. I took a moment to compose myself, feeling a strange mix of excitement and dread. After a few deep breaths, I grabbed a small kitchen knife and carefully sliced through the tape, peeling back the paper. The moment I opened the box, I was hit by a wave of dust and an odd, musty smell. Inside lay a collection of items wrapped in crumpled newspaper. I gingerly pulled them out, revealing an old photograph, a tarnished locket, and what appeared to be a small, intricately carved wooden figure of a man. I picked up the photograph first. It was black and white, showing a group of people gathered around a table, smiling in flashes. I recognized one of the faces. It was my mother, her youthful smile bright and carefree, but I had never seen this picture before. As I studied it, a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. Who were the other people? Why had someone sent this to me? Next, I lifted the locket, its surface scratched and worn. I carefully opened it, revealing two small portraits, one of my mother, another of a man I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I tried to place his face. He had a stern expression, his eyes piercing through the years as if he were judging me from the past. Finally, I turned my attention to the wooden figure. It was about 6 inches tall, carved with meticulous detail. The man had an unsettling expression, one that seemed to change depending on the angle I viewed it from. I felt a chill run down my spine as I examined it more closely, its eyes almost seeming to follow me. I set the items aside, my mind racing. Who had sent these? What was the meaning behind them? I felt the weight of history pressing down on me, urging me to uncover the truth hidden within these objects. With renewed determination, I decided to do some research. I grabbed my laptop and started searching for any clues regarding the photograph and the man in the locket. I tried to recall every detail I knew about my mother's past, her life before she became a parent, but my memories were limited. My parents had always kept their histories close to their chests, and I had never thought to ask more about their lives before me. After a few hours of sifting through social media, genealogy sites, and old archives, I found a mention of a family gathering that seemed to match the one in the photograph. The date coincided with my mother's teenage years, and the location was a town not too far from where I grew up. Then my fingers trembled as I clicked through various links, and finally, I discovered a newspaper article about a local family event that had happened around then. The article mentioned a tragic incident that had occurred during the gathering, a fire that had consumed part of the house where the event was taking place. I felt a cold wave wash over me as I read the details. According to the article, the fire had started suddenly, leaving several people injured and one young man dead. The name struck me like a lightning bolt. Michael, my mother's brother, a name I had never heard before. As I continued to read, the weight of the tragedy settled in my chest. My mother had lost her brother in a terrible accident, and it was clear from the article that the family had never fully recovered. The remaining members had struggled to deal with the grief and shame, and it seemed my mother had buried that part of her life, perhaps as a way to cope with the loss. Feeling overwhelmed, I leaned back in my chair, processing the weight of what I had just uncovered. The photograph suddenly felt much heavier in my hands, a painful reminder of the past that had been hidden from me. I realized that this package was more than just a collection of old items. It was a bridge to my family's history, a history that had been suppressed for too long. The next day, I decided to visit my mother's childhood home, a place I had only seen in old photos. It was a short drive to the small town, and as I made my way there, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I wanted answers, but I was also afraid of what I might discover. When I arrived, the house was much smaller than I had imagined. It stood at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by trees that swayed gently in the wind. The paint was chipped, and the garden was overgrown, but it still held an air of nostalgia. I parked and stepped out of the car, feeling the weight of history settle around me. As I approached the door, my heart pounded in my chest. Should I knock? Would anyone even remember my mother? Taking a deep breath, I raised my hand and knocked. A moment later, an elderly woman opened the door. Her face was wrinkled but kind. "Can I help you?" she asked, studying me with curiosity. "I'm looking for information about my mother," I said hesitantly. "She grew up here." The woman's eyes widened slightly. "What's your mother's name?" "Elizabeth Na," I replied, holding my breath. The name hung in the air for a moment before she nodded. "I remember her. She was such a sweet girl." "Come in, dear." I stepped inside. The familiar scent of old wood and dust enveloped me. The living room was filled with photographs, just like the ones in the package, and for a moment I felt a sense of connection to the past. "Your mother was always so cheerful," the woman said, her voice softening. "But after the fire, it was like she became a different person. The family never quite recovered from that loss." "What happened?" I asked, feeling the weight of her words. She motioned for me to sit down. "The fire took everything from them. Your mother lost her brother that day, changed her. They all mourned him, but your mother carried the burden the hardest. It's a story I don't often share, but it was tragic." As she spoke, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I had never known about Michael, nor the pain that had shaped my mother's life. It was a piece of her I had never understood. And suddenly, everything began to make sense. "I found some things in a package," I said, my voice trembling. "Photographs, a locket, and a wooden figure. Do you think they belong to my mother?" The woman nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, I believe they did. She never spoke much about her brother, but I remember her keeping a few things close, a way to hold on to his memory." With that, I felt a rush of emotion swell within me, the pain of my mother's past intertwining with my own. I had spent so long feeling disconnected from my family, but now, as I listened to this woman recount stories of my mother's childhood, I felt a sense of belonging wash over me. "Thank you for sharing this with me," I said, my voice thick with gratitude. "I need to know more about Michael and what happened." The woman nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You should speak to some of the older folks in town. They remember the fire, and they can tell you stories that may help you understand. Just know that it's a painful subject for many. It's not easy to revisit those memories." I left the woman's home, feeling a mixture of hope and sorrow. The package had opened a door to my past, and I was determined to walk through it. Over the next few days, I spoke to various townsfolk, piecing together fragments of my family's history. Each story revealed more about Michael, the boy who loved adventure, who had dreams of becoming a writer, who had been a good, kind sister. But the memories were always tinged with pain, a reminder of the fire that had stolen him away. One evening, I found myself at the local library, rifling through old newspapers and records. I was searching for any details that could shed light on the circumstances of the fire. As I scanned the pages, I stumbled upon a piece that made my blood run cold. It detailed the fire and the chaos that had ensued. Witnesses described how the flames had erupted, engulfing the room where the family had gathered for a celebration. But one account stood out, a name that sent chills down my spine, the same name I had seen in the package, the same name I had brushed off earlier. A young man named Samuel had been seen leaving the vicinity just moments before the fire erupted. I felt a sense of dread wash over me. Who was this Samuel? Why was he at the party? And what role did he play in this tragedy? Determined to uncover the truth, I reached out to local historians and police records, diving deeper into the past. It wasn't long before I discovered that Samuel had a troubled history. Rumors of petty theft, fights, and a few run-ins with the law. As I pieced together the timeline, a picture began to emerge. One that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. Finally, I learned that Samuel had been friends with Michael. They had grown up together, but their friendship had soured in the months leading up to the fire. Witnesses mentioned heated arguments and a falling out, but no one could pinpoint why. One evening, I was sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of my research, when I made a chilling connection. What if the fire had not been an accident? What if there had been some underlying motive, some unresolved conflict between the boys, that led to that night's tragedy? The thought sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the verge of uncovering something dark and hidden, a truth that had been buried along with the memories of that fateful day. As I continued my investigation, I realized that the wooden figure from the package might hold the key to understanding the events that had transpired. I had kept it on my desk as a reminder of my mother's history, but now I saw it as a symbol of the secrets my family had tried to forget. One night, unable to sleep, I stared at the figure, its unsettling eyes gazing back at me. I needed answers. I needed to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I picked up the figure and examined it closely, searching for any markings or clues that might connect it to my family's past. As I turned it in my hands, a small hidden compartment in the base opened up, revealing a slip of yellowed paper. My heart raced as I carefully unfolded it. The writing was cramped and shaky. It was a letter dated just days before the fire. The letter detailed a confrontation between Michael and Samuel, revealing a tangled web of jealousy, betrayal, and resentment. Samuel had accused Michael of ruining his life, and the letter hinted at a threat, a dark promise that things would end badly if Michael didn't pay for the wrongs he had committed. I could hardly breathe as I read the words, feeling as though I had stumbled upon a curse, one that had haunted my family for decades. The letter painted a horrifying picture of the events leading up to that night. The fire, the anger, the unresolved conflict that had spiraled out of control. I felt a surge of rage and sorrow wash over me, and for the first time, I understood the depth of my mother's pain. She had buried the truth, hoping to shield me from the darkness that had shattered her childhood. In the days that followed, I made it my mission to honor my mother's legacy by sharing the truth. I wrote down everything I had learned, piecing together a narrative that intertwined the tragedy of Michael's death with the pain of a family torn apart. I reached out to local historians, community members, and even the media, sharing my findings and encouraging others to confront the past rather than hide from it. Through my efforts, the story of my family began to emerge from the shadows. It became a tale of resilience, healing, and the importance of facing one's demons. I found a new sense of purpose in uncovering the truth, knowing that it was a way to honor my mother's memory and the brother she had lost. The months passed, and as I looked back at that unmarked package, I realized it had been a turning point in my life. It had forced me to confront the darkness and seek out the truth, ultimately leading me to a deeper understanding of who I was and where I came from. The wooden figure remained on my desk, a reminder of the secrets I had uncovered and the strength I had found in facing the past. I had turned a painful history into a powerful narrative, one that celebrated my family's resilience and the importance of embracing the truth, no matter how disturbing it may be. As I sat at my desk one evening, looking out at the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It had taken a journey through the shadows, and I had emerged stronger, ready to face whatever lay ahead. I understood now that confronting the past was not just about seeking answers, but about healing and finding the strength to carry on. The package had changed everything, and in its wake, I found clarity, purpose, and a profound connection to my family that I had never known before. I was no longer burdened by the weight of secrets. I was empowered by the truth, ready to embrace the future with open arms.